Okay, welcome to Deep Weird Dialogues with me, Dr. Jack Hunter. I'm talking with contributors to the book Deep Weird, and today I'm talking to Susan Demeter, a researcher, paranormal investigator, and cosmic witch, about her chapter on an experimental model of conjuring. So, Susan, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about what you mean by this experimental model of conjuring and how you think it can help us to understand high strangeness.
Sure. Well, my chapter is really based in part in my own personal experiments and my own experiences with the deep weird. I think that parapsychology and some of the experiments of the 1970s, such as George and Iris Owen's Philip experiments and others, including some in Russia, which I get into in my chapter, have shown us that there is a means to conjure, if you will, these types of experiences that sort of push the boundaries of what might be considered normal consensus reality. So I am a sort of no guts, no glory type of gal. So I kind of advocate for a type of direct experimentation in an attempt to conjure, if you will, using occult terms, to have these types of experiences for ourselves in a better way of trying to understand them. I'm an experient. I've had these experiences since I was a child. It was very difficult for me to discuss them. Certainly, even as a young adult, very difficult to try and understand, like to get other people to understand what I'm talking about. So this is what I'm advocating for, is working on these types of models, again, as pioneered by Iris and George Owen and others, especially in the 1970s, where I think people were a little bit more open to these type of direct experimentation. So I'm not really reinventing the wheel here, but I am advocating for kind of going back and examining it with a hands-on direct approach, the deep weird.
Very cool. So, well, I'm interested to know a little bit about how you moved from being an experiencer to being, a conjurer. Like, what was the step that took you from just having the experiences to thinking, actually, I can manifest these as well?
I really think that goes back to a dream I had many years ago, where I was dreaming, of all things, of a woman who was yelling at me and sort of shaking a baguette, which is interesting because in French that's actually a wand, but neither here nor there. I saw a piece of bread.
Uh-huh.
So in the midst of this dream, which was very vivid, I awoke to my phone ringing. And at the time I had two very elderly parents. So I kind of jumped out of bed, went running for the phone. I missed the call. And as I turned back to go to bed, I saw this woman in my hallway, mouthing and shaking this stick of bread, this baguette. So I don't know, I just was kind of like gobsmacked because she looked like a solid apparitional figure. I'm an adult woman at this point, and I was okay. And I really didn't know what to do with that in the exact moment. And I went back to bed. And then waking up, I thought, did this really happen? I checked the phone, and sure enough, on my call display, it did record this late night phone call with an unknown phone number, just adding in a little bit more weirdness.
Yeah.
There we go. Just a little bit more of that kind of phone call from the dead kind of vibe, weird, really deep weirdness.
Yeah.
And from there, I had to think about these things in a bit of a different way. Like, how is it that this dream, which I knew I was in that sort of subconscious state, how did this manifest in my hallway when I was already conscious and fully awake enough to register the phone is ringing and pick it up? So that kind of got me to thinking along these lines. But even before that, I had discovered in a thrift store the book, The Conjuring, Philip, which I have it here. I'm going to hold it up
Yeah, I do.
in case people who are viewing this or reading the book can see that this is one of my influences for sure, which was the Toronto experiments, where they literally used a Victorian parlor style seance in the 1970s in the attempt to conjure a fictional character. And they had some success with physical phenomena that was recorded outside of this sitting group. So that early on kind of got my noggin going, my juices going, and I thought, well, wouldn't it be interesting if we could try and do this with a UFO? And so that's going to be an expansion on the chapter that I've wrote for Deep Weird, which will be another book that I'm working on currently, which is my own experimentation with this kind of, this type of model to try and understand these experiences.
That's brilliant. Thank you. I will look forward to that as well. Thank you very much for that. So if you're interested in reading Susan's chapter, you can get hold of Deep Weird. I hope you find it interesting. Thank you.